Vision boards are huge. When I got my first house, I had like a half torn up poster board. I put it on the wall of my bedroom. I drew a little crappy house on it, had a green marker, and I would put how much I was saving for down payments. Eventually, I saved enough, and then we bought our first family home. The power of vision boards, manifestation, it's a wonderful thing once you see it in action. Welcome to the Legacy Builders Podcast. I am your host, Mario Gonzalez. And if you're looking to build something bigger than yourself, then you are definitely in the right place. In today's episode, I really want to touch on the power of manifestation and vision boards. You know, it's not woo-woo. Just the fluffy things that you see in the media all the time, they actually work. And vision boards look different for different people, right? Again, I remember we used to live in lots of apartments and duplexes, and I always had dreams of owning my own home, but unfortunately I was making 30 grand a year, if that, working overtime 80 hours a week. And I had started reading something, I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was like an audio CD, audiobook that I picked up from the library. So I pop it in and I hear this thing about a vision board or a vision wall. And so my son had a project at the time, and I ended up grabbing that poster board. I had a couple of Sharpies, and I grabbed it and I drew a house. It was just a very basic house, rectangle with a triangle roof on top, right? And I think I had $1,000 saved up at that time. And I was like, I need to make more money if I want to buy this house. And for us, 10%, 20% down payment was anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000. So I put a little tiny sliver of a green land at the bottom for $1,000. And then I ended up getting a job in software sales over at Dell. And I was making a little more money, right, as I started getting more experience. And so I was able to bump that $1,000 into $5,000, into $10,000, into $20,000. And then before you know it, a year, not even a year and a half later, I had enough money for us to get our first home. Fortunately, at that time, home prices, brand new builds were still pretty good. So I think we ended up getting our first house for $300,000, somewhere around there. So I only had to put in 30 grand or 35 grand, enough to just barely get to the point where we can knock down P&L. So if I'm being honest, before that, I can't honestly say that I knew what a vision board was. I had heard about manifestation, but that was my light bulb moment. It was like, okay, this actually works. I didn't have another vision board for a long time after that. I can't even remember what the last, time was up until I got into the dog training business. And I wanted to quit the B2B sales corporate world. So I just literally started posting stuff on my wall. And it was a picture of the logo of All Dogs Unleashed. It was a picture of the facility. It was a picture of how much money I wanted to make. For me, it was really getting up and looking at that wall every day and just seeing it, right? The reinforcements. That was a pretty simple wall. Eventually, I did get into the dog training business. I was able to make it successful. It took a lot of grind and grit and not knowing how I was going to pull through, but I did it, right? Another example of vision board and why it worked for me. Fast forward, if you look into my wall now in my bedroom, it takes up the entire wall, man. It is huge. I have the core of what I want my empire to look like. And then from there, it just expands into specific numbers. I have a picture of a truck on there saying we want to buy we buy businesses. Black, it has gold lettering on it, super premium. It's not gimmicky like the old we buy houses signs, right? I have my sons. I told them, hey, I need you guys to create your vision board, because a lot of the times I get stuck trying to map out my vision, but I forget the vision of my kids. So one of my sons loves art. So he has this whole poster board dedicated to himself and his art and what he wants to do with art. My other son loves magic. He wants to start making money off of magic. My nephew, he wants to own a house by the time he turns 18. He has a little less than 2 years to achieve that goal. And I tell them, I'm like, guys, make your goals big. Your goals have to be huge. They don't have to be 10x Grant Cardone huge, but they have to be big. When you start thinking small, you're going to have small outcomes. So the point is that a vision board can look like whatever you want it to. What you really want to do is focus on reprogramming your brain, or programming your brain to see it every day, study it every day, and eventually those things are going to happen. You're intuitively going to start doing the things that it's going to take to get to that goal. Another powerful thing you can do is create manifestation. I have a friend, Lisa Dunn, who we'll get in the podcast here at some point, but she literally writes down every single day, 2 to 3 times a day, what she's living in 10 years from now, right, in the future, or what she's going to do next year. So, for example, she's like, I'm going to have $200,000 in my checking account, or it feels so good to have $200,000 in my checking account. It feels so good to have $200,000 in my checking account. It feels so good to have $200,000 in my checking account. Something about connecting the dots, writing it physically, and then just living as if you're, already in that moment in time is huge. It is freaking powerful. So I have a whole 2-page letter talking about, what my life looks like 10 years from now. And in that letter, I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while since I looked at it, but I was like, I am Mario Gonzalez. I have a beautiful wife, a beautiful family. We're successful. We take trips whenever we want to. I have a $5 million house and my Celine S7 and a 64 Impala, factory restored SS ragtop sitting in my driveway. It's a 5-car garage. My kids are successful in their own rights. I'm helping people build generational wealth. It is very, very descriptive. And that's the way it should be, is you want to be able to map out your future and figure out how you're going to get there along the way. There's just no way around it. And you're really not going to understand it until you try it. You can take pieces of, magazines and cutouts and, put them in a scrapbook, or just write yourself notes every day. I tried journaling for a while and it didn't really work for me. For now, at least, as I evolve, ChatGPT is my journal. I'll talk to it. I'll give it ideas. I'll explain situations that happened in my life. How do I improve? I'll ask it to tell me, what my life should look like 3 years from now, right? And it's a really, really powerful tool. Really, it boils down to, what are you going to be able to see every day? What are you going to be able to do every day that's going to reinforce that behavior? I see some folks, they'll put Post-it notes in the mirror. So every day they look in the mirror and wash their face, they'll have a constant reminder. So yeah, figure out what your vision board means to you, what your goals are. Write down your goals. It doesn't matter how stupid they are, how big they are. I know some folks that are embarrassed about showcasing their goals, which sucks, man, because I've been there. People sometimes are not going to believe that you can execute what you can execute. They'll tell you yes to your face, but behind your back, they're not expecting you to fail. But let's be honest. Not everybody has the same ambitions that we do as entrepreneurs. But if you're in that place where you feel embarrassed or you're not sure you want to share things with the world, get out of that mindset as soon as you can. Start journaling it. Eventually have a little Post-it note on the board and then turn it into a big one. Start mapping stuff all over your wall. If you don't want to mess up your wall, then have like a custom DIY one that you can just put up from time to time. But yeah, I encourage everybody to figure out what vision board means for you. Again, it's a huge, huge deal. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Legacy Builders podcast. We will see you in the next one.